Alrighty, Commanders, welcome back to the channel. Semi-original guy here, aka Mr. Cannon from Advanced Wars by Web. Today, we are putting strategy aside and breaking out the monocles, cufflinks, and the 5-star charm. Because we are ranking the classiest commanding officers in Advanced Wars. These aren't just the best tacticians. They've got style and that undeniable CO swagger that makes their enemies surrender out of sheer admiration. From dapper dressers to elegant egos, we're sorting them from the gritty grunts to the royalty level refinement. So polish your boots and straighten your tie. It's time for the classiest CO tier list. Alrighty, folks, we are going to start the Advanced Wars by Web CO tier list on how classy the COs are. We're going to start with Adder today. Now, Adder is a movement-based CO. He is firmly based in the tier 4, occasionally boosted up to tier 3, depending on the map. Now, Adder is a villain. He is a villain of Black Hole. He is a sinister lad. His main villains, or his main adversaries, are Grit. He doesn't like Grit. He's not a Grit fan. But Adder, he oozes style and presence. He marches on the battlefield like he's already won the fight. Adder has some of the best dialogue in Advanced Wars. I will say that for certain. He's definitely one of those soap opera villains that knows that he's already the main character. Adder is all tactics. He doesn't really get any firepower bonuses. He doesn't get global damage. It's all down to the player and how they play his abilities. So Adder is a dignified CO. He's not quite classy, but he is a good CO. Next up, we have Andy, the boy wonder of Advanced Wars. Now, Andy's main gimmick in tier 3 is that he is able to heal himself. Now, he doesn't do global damage to anybody else. He doesn't get any firepower bonuses. He's just a very respectable CO. I think people underestimate Andy and how good he can possibly be in the right hands. Now, being able to heal your units is very, very handy. And the slight movement bonus and firepower increase that he gets is also some top tier stuff. Unfortunately, he's not quite as strong as a lot of COs. But in the right hands, he can be very good. In the campaign, he's very humble. He doesn't really insult people. All he wants to do is do right by his countrymen and get the job done. For that, I would say Andy is a very classy CO choice indeed. Next up, we have Colin, the little rich boy of Blue Moon. Now, Colin is a broken CO. He is firmly in the top tier of COs. Now, he doesn't have a lot of firepower, but he can spam units because they are cheap as all heck. Now, the problem with Colin is people don't pick Colin because they want a fair fight. People pick Colin because they want to bully their opponents into surrender. They want to make the game as fundamentally easy as they can for themselves and make it extremely difficult for their opponents. He is an incredibly snowbally CO, but he is very humble, he's very respectful, and all he wants to do is make Olaf and Grit and Sasha proud. For that, I would say Colin is a presentable CO. Next up, folks, we have Drake of the Green Earth Army. Now, Drake is a naval CO. He is incredibly strong when it comes to naval combat. The rest of his styles are sort of mid and weak in air units. So Drake is not quite as strong as the other global damage COs like Hawk and Olaf. But he does have a place in the tier list. Now, normally he's around tier 3. He can usually beat out most of the tier 4 COs and quite a bit of the tier 3 COs. But he does suffer a little bit when it comes to those air units. Drake is a very intelligent CO when it comes to the game. He knows that there is something going on, and he's trying to get to the bottom of things. He's working with other countries that could be enemies, but he's doing it for the greater good. The issue with Drake is when people pick Drake, They choose Drake because they want to try to make the game a little bit easier for them. And rightfully so. Advanced Wars is a very difficult game. But they want to use the global damage to do the job for them. They don't want to fight on fair footing. They want to use the global damage and get the win through that instead of through pure tactics. So for that, I would say Drake is a sloppy CO. Unfortunately, he's not quite classy. He's not quite presentable. He is a little bit sloppy. Next up, folks, we have Eagle. Eagle is the flyboy ace pilot of the Green Earth Army. He has increased firepower on his air units, and he has one of the most broken CO powers in Advanced Wars, the Lightning Strike, allowing you to move twice in one turn. Now, when it comes to Tier 2 combat, where Eagle normally sits, he is met with some very difficult COs to fight. Eagle is not the kind of CO that wants to fight somebody head-on. Eagle is a stall CO. He wants to stall the game out. He wants to make it as long as possible and wait for his opportune moment to just get in there and just blitzkrieg the heck out of his opponents. In the campaign, especially the Advanced Wars 1 campaign, he's quite rude. He's quite hot-headed, unless he's talking to Sammy. But who wouldn't be nice to Sammy? Eagle tends to let his arrogance and his anger get to him. And unfortunately, that is his downfall a lot of the time in the campaigns. Now, when it comes to Advanced Wars by Web, Eagle is a difficult choice. He's a difficult CO to use, but if you can figure out how to use him, then you can dominate the game. Eagle, at the end of the day, is a very presentable CO. Next up, folks, we have Flak. Now, Flak is a villain. He is the low pick for the Black Hole COs. He's a Tier 4 CO. His main gimmick is luck. Luck, good luck, and bad luck. Flip a coin, you never know which side you're going to land on. Now, when it comes to competitive Advanced Wars, normally you don't really play Flak because luck is banned. But there are some instances where you do end up playing Flak. And when you do, you choose him, not necessarily to do as much damage as you possibly can to your opponent, but to let Jesus take the wheel because you're too drunk to drive. So when it comes to Advanced Wars by Web, folks, when you're dealing with luck, it is amazing to be able to just walk up to your opponent with an infantry and do 90% damage, or even 100% damage in some cases. But is that tactics? Some people may say yes, some people may say no. But at the end of the day, it is a very sloppy way to go. Next up, folks, we have Grim. Grim is a Yellow Comet CO firmly planted in the Tier 4 region of Advanced Wars by Web. He is a low tier CO, high firepower, low defense. People pick Grim to challenge themselves. They don't pick Grim because he's necessarily the best choice for any map, which he's not. But they choose him because they want to get better. They choose him because they want to learn the game at its hardest difficulty. People that choose Grim are the kind of people that play level 1 Dark Souls runs for fun. Grim is an incredibly difficult CO to master, but if you do manage to master Grim and master positioning in Advanced Wars by Web, you can get some pretty amazing stuff done. For that, I am going to put Grim as a very classy CO. Next up, folks, we have Grit. Grit is the indirect specialist of Advanced Wars. Now, Grit tends to be in the broken tier of Advanced Wars, but for some game modes, High Funds and Fog, he goes down a little bit in the tiers. Now, when you're playing a standard matchup in Advanced Wars and you're playing Grit, you choose Grit so that you can just psychologically damage your opponent to the point where they want to resign by day 12 instead of getting barraged by 15 artillery that are waiting behind a line of infantry. When it comes to the game, Grit is a very humble CO. He's very relaxed, very chill. All he wants to do is just sit in a field and enjoy the sun. But when it comes to Advance Wars, people choose Grit, at least in Standard, because they want to just sit back and blast their opponents to smithereens. They don't want to engage. They just want to wait until they inevitably win through sheer number of artillery. Now, if you decide to pick Grit in a different game mode, it is a little bit more of a challenge. So for that, I'm not going to put Grit in a low tier. Grit is going to be a presentable CO. Next up on the list, folks, we have Hatchie. Now, Hatchie is the former commander-in-chief of the Orange Star Army. He is also one of those broken tier 0 COs, which are incredibly powerful. Now, people pick Hatchie because they just want to break the game of Advance Wars and cause as much chaos as they possibly can. Hatchie is sort of like Colin in a way, but his units are a little bit more expensive, but he can deploy them from any property on the map when he uses his super co-power, which is incredibly easy to get, only being 5 stars. Now, Hatchie has a very cool, calm, relaxed demeanor. He is just like that retired grandpa that will one day, after a few too many whiskeys sitting on his porch, tell you some very, very traumatizing war stories. Now, when it comes to competitive Advance Wars, people choose Hatchie just to win, and win as easily as they possibly can. So when it comes to the official rating for Hatchie, people will pick him so they can have easy wins, but most of the time they're just going up against other broken COs as well. So we are going to put Hatchie on the same level as Colin when it comes to broken COs. He is a presentable CO. Plus he sells you stuff, so, you know, get that stuff. Buy those maps, folks. Next up on the list is we have Hawk. So Hawk is the second in command of the Black Hole Army in Advance Wars 2. He is a very interesting CO. He's a little bit of an edgelord, folks, I'm not going to lie. But his day-to-day abilities will give him increased firepower. And he has global damage, folks. Now, global damage does tend to make the game a little bit easier. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with the other COs that are in the tier 1 bracket, he is actually more of an underdog than you would think. Now, in Advance Wars 2, he does have a redemption arc near the end of the game where he is the one that actually defeats the body of Sturm. Sturm's hat is still alive out there, folks. So it does show that he has some redeeming qualities. He follows the strong and he only wants to prove himself to be the strongest. And when it comes to tier 1 COs, he's definitely not the strongest out there. But I would say that he's definitely a pretty good pick. I am going to put Hawk under the dignified section of Advance Wars because he is an honorable pick when it comes to tier 1. He's not the strongest, but if you play him right, you can get marvelous things done. Next up, folks, is we have Jake. We have Discount Andy. Now, Jake was introduced in Advance Wars Dual Strike as one of the new COs for Orange Star. He's the new main character CO. He's probably one of the weirdest COs when it comes to Advance Wars. His powers are very odd. He's able to get increased range on his indirects, and when he uses his Super Co-Power, it's like a combination of increased range and increased firepower and movement. And he is firmly in the tier 4 section of Advance Wars, so he's not necessarily too strong, but he's an interesting pick. Now, the only real reason why people pick Jake is because he's the best for like a specific map. They don't pick Jake necessarily because they want to. They pick Jake because they want to win, and that's all. Jake also has some of the worst dialogue in Advance Wars Dual Strike. He is just trying way too hard. And unfortunately, I'm going to put him on the sloppy tier. So, you know, Jake, you're just trying too hard, buddy. That's all. Next up, folks, is we have the man of chivalry himself, Javier. Javier is such an interesting CO because he relies solely on being able to acquire comm towers. If you do not get a comm tower when you're playing as Javier, then you are dealing with a tier 4 CO. And now normally, Javier with a comm tower would be considered a tier 1 CO. But if you don't get that comm tower, you have yourself an incredibly uphill battle. His entire strategy relies on acquiring something on the map and then holding onto it for dear life with both hands, protecting it like a knight protects his princess. In a tier filled with absolute power, only the bravest choose to play as Javier. So for that, Javier is a very classy CO. Next up, folks, we have Jess, the tank girl of Advance Wars, firmly down in the tier 4 region of power. But what Jess lacks in power, she makes up for in style. She is an elegant CO, strong, independent woman. She will fight tooth and nail to defend her country. And most of the time, Jess is not actually the strongest pick on any map when it comes to tier 4. There are a few where she tends to do pretty good. She tends to be a little bit better in high funds, but when it comes to standard, her infantry just get bullied and she relies solely on the power of her tactics and her tanks. Jess is one savage lady when it comes to Green Earth, folks. And for that, I am going to put her under the dignified section of the tier list. She's not quite the classiest pick, but she is strong and dignified indeed. Next up, folks, we have Jugger, the juggler himself. Now, Jugger is basically Flock with a little bit more and less luck damage. Similar to Flock, people just pick Jugger because they want to roll that die and see if they can just make their opponent resign with a single move. Unfortunately, that is not necessarily the classiest thing to do, folks. But for those Jugger fans out there, keep doing what you're doing and pray for good luck, folks. But for this tier list, we are putting Jugger under the sloppy tier. He's not quite classy, just like Flock, but he's just out here doing his best and making funny things happen. Next up on the list, folks, is we have Kanbai. So Kanbai, the commander-in-chief of the Yellow Comet Army. Kanbai is a samurai, and he lives by a code of honor. Kanbai's units are incredibly strong, and they cannot be defeated. No matter how many times you throw units at him, he will just stand there and take it, and he will destroy everything in his path. He fights the most broken COs in Advance Wars. He fights Collins, he fights Hatchies, Sturms, Senseis, everybody. And normally, he comes out on top. Now, not every time, but he is incredibly strong. And he values the people of his country over anything, and the protection of his daughter. He will throw countless waves of medium tanks into the void to just ensure that his people and his daughter are safe. Kanbai is a very classy CO. Next up, folks, we have Lash. Now, unfortunately, Lash and we have a little bit of a disagreement. She wants to create Neo-tanks, and I want the Soiled Abominations to be deleted out of the game, never to be seen again. But you know what? If you're going to be building Neo-tanks, folks, just make sure that you get yourself some high-quality soap to wash away the stink. Now, when it comes to Advance Wars, Lash is an interesting CO because she has one of the most gimmicky powers for day-to-day, being able to get firepower per terrain star. So Lash's entire gimmick relies solely on her ability to be able to use her tactics and use the terrain to her advantage. She's not the kind of CEO that can just willy-nilly just go somewhere on the map and just pray that it's going to work. She needs to work the field and maintain the battlefield and make sure she can come out on top. She faces some very stiff competition. She used to have to fight Kindle. She has to fight Drake. She has to fight Andy. And sometimes she even has to fight Rachel. Lash is a tactician through and through. And if it wasn't for her being the creator of the Neotanks, I would probably rank her a little bit higher. But when it comes to the sake of battles and COs, I am going to put Lash as a very dignified choice. She's not the strongest, relies entirely on her tactics. And if you choose her, you're basically telling your opponent that I know what I'm doing. Do you? Next to folks, we have Kindle. Oh, Kindle. The Urban Blight Specialist of Advance Wars. Now, Kindle is a very strong CO, and she got a little bit of a buff, so she's boosted up a tier, but she used to be in tier 3, but now she's in tier 2 for the most part. But Kindle's gimmick is she sits on cities and she never leaves them, and if you sit on cities, she will just damage your units. Kindle relies entirely on forcing you to leave cities so that she can capture them, and if you don't get properties and she starts getting those powers out, you're never getting a property, folks. People don't necessarily pick Kindle because they want to. People pick Kindle because she's just, most of the time, the best pick for that map. Unfortunately for the Kindle lovers out there, I'm going to put Kindle as a stinky CO because people want their cities. Give them the cities. Kindle does not want people to have cities. She wants to keep all the cities for herself. Stinky. Next up, folks, is we have Cole. So Cole is a very interesting pick indeed. Cole's similar to Adder in a lot of ways, but he also gets a firepower bonus on roads. So he's a little bit different from Adder. People that pick Cole because they want to have a challenge. So Adder is a little bit stronger because he can get out his normal power a little bit quicker. Cole takes a little bit longer to get that power out. A lot of the time people pick Cole because sometimes he's good. A lot of the time people will pick Cole to challenge themselves, or sometimes he is actually the best on the map. But unfortunately, Cole's character is not really all that deep. He doesn't really have a lot going for him. And for that, I'm going to put him as a presentable CO. Not quite dignified, not quite classy, not quite sloppy, but he's presentable. The next CO on the list here, folks, is Max. Now, Max is the direct combat specialist of Advance Wars. Now, a lot of the time, Max is not necessarily the strongest pick on maps, but sometimes he is the strongest pick on a map. If it's like a base light matchup, he is very strong. If it's a base heavy matchup, it's a little bit weaker. In the tier 2 range where he has to fight people like Eagle and people like Olaf. Very difficult COs to go up against. Max will rely on pure adrenaline, pure savagery. He needs to go up and he needs to attack, and he needs to attack quick. He cannot just allow people to sit back and stall. He needs to win the game as quickly as he can. Otherwise, things usually go pretty bad for him. Max is an honorable CO. He wants to protect his country and he wants to protect his friends. And for that, Max is a dignified CO. Next up on the list, folks, is we have Nell, the current commander-in-chief of the Orange Star Army and the luck specialist of Advance Wars. Now, as stated before, I don't really like relying on luck too much. Unfortunately, going into a battle and just knowing that for at least one turn, you are just going to absolutely decimate your opponent and has absolutely nothing to do with necessarily the strategy that you're doing or anything. It's just the sheer fact that your rolls are going to be bigger than your opponent. When it comes to the story though, Nell is an incredibly classy lady. She is wonderful. Everybody loves Nell, and there's no reason not to. But for this tier list, and for her standings in the CO classy tier, I'm going to put Nell slightly above Flak and Jugger. I'm going to put her in some presentable, because she is a classy CO, but I don't really like relying on luck too much, folks. And that's just what it is. Nell is a very presentable CO. Next up, folks, we have Olaf. Olaf is actually one of my favorite COs in Advance Wars, and he's always been one of my favorite COs in Advance Wars. I think Olaf's story is one of redemption. He was originally tricked by Sturm, manipulated into doing horrendous things. but he learned the error of his ways, and now he fights out of the goodness of his heart. Unfortunately, people choose Olaf because he is the easiest choice in his tier. Tier 2. You make it snow, and you make it global damage, and you win. And that is it, folks. So Olaf in the game is a very honorable CO after a little while. But when it comes to the Advanced Wars, by web, classy tier list, Olaf is just a sloppy CO. People choose Olaf because they want to have the easiest game they possibly can. And because they want to ruin Eagle's life. And that is pretty much it. Next up, folks, is we have the happiest girl in Advanced Wars, Rachel, Nell's little sister, a wild child when it comes to Advanced Wars. She has an ability, unlike anybody else's in Advanced Wars. She's able to summon 3 missiles to fire on her opponents, which could do massive damage or minimal damage. You never know, folks. It all depends on positioning. She also has an ability where she relies a little bit on luck. Rachel is doing her best to live in the shadow of her big sister Nell, and she is doing her best out there, folks. She's got a lot of stiff competition when it comes to the tier 3 roster. She can be countered by Andy. She can be countered by Drake. She can also get a whole lot of things done, folks. Now, sometimes with Rachel, you have an automatic win button, and sometimes you don't. And that's just it, folks. But she does have a unique day-to-day, which does make her have to use tactics a little bit more. So, Rachel, I'm going to put her under a presentable location when it comes to the tier list. I wouldn't say necessarily she's dignified, because when people use Rachel, they want to just manipulate the game so that the missiles will do as much damage as they possibly can. So a lot of the time people are relying on the sheer RNG of the missiles instead of relying on pure tactics. But there are people out there that use Rachel in a very tactical way. So I'm not going to put her down into the sloppy tier. She is going to stay as a presentable CO. Next up, folks, we have Sammy, the infantry and mech specialist of Advanced Wars by web. Sammy is the poster child when it comes to infantry and mechs in Advanced Wars. She is the only CO in the entire game that can capture cities faster than the average CO. She is also one of the COs that has an instant win condition when it comes to Advanced Wars. Now, people will play Sammy and they will rely entirely on just being able to victory march the enemy HQ, which is not necessarily the classiest way to do it. But there's other people that'll use every single tool in Sammy's toolkit in order to dominate the map. And those people play Sammy in a very, very classy way. She doesn't have a lot of firepower on her units. Her infantry and mechs are top tier. Sammy is a tactician through and through. So despite the fact that people will try to victory march at the HQ, I am still going to put Sammy as a very classy pick. When it comes to her tiers, she's not usually the first choice. But she is the first choice in our hearts, folks. Alrighty, folks, next up we have Sasha, the big sister of Colin, and a tier 1 CO. Now, Sasha will get 100 extra funds for every property that she owns, and you might think that that's not really anything super significant, but the reason why Sasha is such a highly rated CO is the fact that her power will negate the power bar of her opponent. So people pick Sasha because they don't want to deal with Hawks, Black Wave, and Black Storm, and Vonbolt's Ex Machina. Sasha might not be the strongest pick when it comes to the tier, firepower wise, but she is one of the most annoying COs to go up against. For that, I am going to put Sasha in the dignified section. Now, she's not quite classy because people will pick her just to be annoying, and you all know it, but she is a little bit better than a presentable CO. Next up, folks, we have Sensei, the old timer of the Yellow Comet Army. Now, Sensei's day-to-day is very strong. He will get increased firepower on infantry and mechs and battlecopters, but decreased firepower on a lot of the direct combat unit. Now, the reason why Sensei is a tier 0 CO in most cases, except for in high funds, Sensei is a tier 0 CO because he just gets to spam infantry all day long. And people will choose Sensei because they just get free map control. They don't necessarily choose Sensei because he's strong. They choose Sensei because they want to zombie apocalypse the entire map and win through sheer overwhelming numbers. So for that, Sensei, unfortunately, is a stinky CO. He's a very strong CO, but he's a stinky CO, and nobody wants to go up against him. Next up on the list, folks, we have Sonia. Sonia is Kanbai's daughter and a tier 4 CO. She's quite low on the tier list. She suffers from bad luck, and her powers are not necessarily too strong. All of her units' HP is hidden, and it makes it very difficult to end up fighting Sonia. Now, when you're playing Sonia, it's very difficult to actually get KOs due to that low luck. Some people might pick Sonia to try to challenge themselves. Some people might pick Sonia just to try to annoy their opponent. But unfortunately, Sonia is going to fall under the same tier as the other luck COs. Sonia, sorry to my Sonia fans out there, but she is a sloppy CO. Next up on the list, folks, we have Sturm, the final boss of Advance Wars 1 and 2. Sturm has the most broken day-to-day ability in Advance Wars. Now, you might think that other abilities are broken, but Sturm is far more broken than anybody else. Sturm increased defense, lowered offense, and perfect movement. I cannot stress the fact of just how game-breaking perfect movement is in Advance Wars. You build a recon and it is able to move a full 8 squares all the time. You build infantry, they can walk completely over mountains and get no movement penalty. People pick Sturm because they want to break the game. Sturm has an incredibly powerful super CO power that can do 8 damage to anything that a meteor hits. He's got a normal co power that can do half the amount of damage as well. While it is incredibly fun to use Sturm, the sheer amount of game breaking things that can happen when you're using Sturm, unfortunately, will put Sturm in a sloppy CO section. He is incredibly strong, but people use Sturm because they want to break the game. And finally, folks, we are on Vonbolt, the big bad boss of Advance Wars Dual Strike. Now, Vonbolt, he is a tier 1 CO. He's incredibly strong. He's got 10% firepower and 10% defense. One of the few COs in the game that will have increased defense. And a super co-power that just makes you want to pull your hair out if you get hit by it unexpectedly. People will choose Vonbolt not because they want to choose Vonbolt, not because he's a fun CO to play. People will choose Vonbolt just because he is the easiest CO to play in that tier. All you have to do as Vonbolt is just build your units, send them to the front line, and just decimate your opponent. Unfortunately, for the Vonbolt users out there, Vonbolt is a very stinky CO. And there you have it, folks. The official rankings of classiest to stinkiest COs in Advance Wars by Web. Did your favorite CO end up on the classy tier? Or did your favorite CO end up somewhere? Or did your favorite CO land somewhere down below? Let me know in the comments, folks. Until then, take care of yourselves, and bye-bye for now.